Look, 100 years after 100 years, they done lied to us about this and that. Told us all we from Africa and made fiction characters turn into facts. Harriet Tubman, then it was not. Knowing goddamn well that trick was capped. My wife and I wrote a book about it, and it's book with knowledge, evidence, and fact. My other book got them haters shook, cause it's helping my people take a closer look at their backgrounds in the background, showing my people where they supposed to look, showing my people where to get it from, where to hit it from, all sorts of angles. When it comes to this research, you must please first, don't trust strangers. Finding out all on your own is what I highly recommend and suggest. And if you looking for uncensored content by me, I highly recommend you the best, which is my website at the link you see just across the screen. Don't let it miss you, I make it simple. I double down on that black and white, it's too official. I'm up for the task. My grandfather prepared me very well. In fact, to get on a personal note slightly, he's the one that brought me into this realm. He straightened me out years ago. I came up in the house talking about some Africa stuff, and he said, and he straightened me out. Him and grandma passed 10 days before my first son was born. But it was a lot of lessons to be learned, and I just sat and listened. I took notes, and eventually I'm gonna start putting some of this stuff out. I did give it to people that are exclusively on my channel or on my Patreon. They saw bits and pieces of my grandfather talking on camera. I did get a chance to record him speaking about certain things, but yeah, he brought me through this journey. I owe it all to him. I wouldn't have never known. And the reason why is because during my grandfather's era, he was born in 1936. The era where he was raised in the 1930s, 1940s, at that time, our elders of the family members were being harassed, killed, hung. I could just simplify it just like that, for even claiming Indian. He saw certain things with my family members, like my great grandmother, which is his mother, and his aunt with my great aunt, my great great aunt. A couple of them were thrown in jail, you know, as far as them claiming Indian is concerned. It was just because of that. It wasn't nothing else. And at that time, my grandfather was explaining to me how it was. Like, that was prior to desegregation. You know, desegregation didn't come about until the 60s. So even though our people were living segregated from, you know, the so-called white folks, my grandfather at that time, across the street from his mother's house, was a white family. He told me, and this what blew my mind. He told me at that time, when he was a young boy, he was out there playing basketball and football with the young white boy that lived across the street from him. They ended up growing up together and becoming good friends, and I believe he ended up owning a bakery or something down the street, Florence, South Carolina. PD Indians. Shout out to my PD Indians. Catawba family. Shout out to my Anyanyaweah family. That is the great Anyanyaweah family. Let me put some respect on my father's name on that one. But yeah, so when people ask me, I'm going to definitely tell you Anyanyaweah first, based off of it being my direct line from my father. But PD and Catawba, that's grandma and that's granddad. Okay, just in case you guys were wondering. Now, some of my family members are registered as far as them being with these particular tribes. Me personally, of course I could walk onto the reservation, I have my card, but the problem is I don't like how it's being ran, okay? And I don't like who it's being ran by. The majority of the head chiefs of these particular tribes, especially the civilized tribes, there's more than 5, by the way. A lot of those that are being federally recognized right now are considered civilized tribes, just in case you didn't know that. But they're being ran by folks that don't even live here, meaning they don't even live in the United States. They live outside of the United States, believe it or not. They're controlling it by remote control. Okay, and I put this on blast a couple of times. In fact, I took heat from a lot of those so-called Native American tribes for even putting that on blast. Nothing but pale faces, for real. Still to this very day, to be honest with you. But it's a big deal to me to put it on blast of what's going on behind the scenes. with how many of those foreigners are attacking me for bringing out the truth, for putting them on blast. Because technically, they're in our position. And I mean that literally. They are literally sitting there in our spot. They're not supposed to be there. There's federally recognized tribes right now that will only accept certain census records. For example, one of them will state that they only accept, for example, an 1860 census record. And they wouldn't want you to bring in any other record that, census record that came prior to that, indicating that you're full-blooded. They won't accept it. It's more than just those freedmen Indians that you hear about. It's millions of us that's full-blooded, and they still won't accept. So my main concern is not getting back with the tribe. My main concern is to get us cognizant of what happened to us, because we can force the changes together. I don't necessarily have to be called a leader in this sense, but I know I'm leading this information out. And to go back to the video that I asked you to play, that was 1 year ago. But I just want you guys to know, everybody else that you saw, I spoke with personally. I could say it like that. That's not bragging. That's just to let you know that I'm speaking to more than you think. I'm speaking to a lot of people reaching out, and we get into their roots. And I don't mean Shaka Zulu. Plus, that story was plagiarized anyway. I already put that information out. You know, I'm talking about our real indigenous roots here in Turtle Island, now known as America. I owe this all to my grandfather. To get back to that, my grandfather taught me all of this. He straightened me out. And my father brought me to Cherokee, North Carolina. I even lived there. Actually, before I moved out here, I was right on the outskirts of that because I didn't want to live in the on the reservation or anything like that. But I was begging them to get on camera because there's people that's like KP's complexion. And I'm begging them to get on camera, and they are afraid. They are afraid because a lot of those people are afraid that certain things might get taken away from them. A lot of them are complaining because you would think that they're getting thousands of dollars monthly, but it's not the members. It's the so-called chiefs that's getting it. The nations were being brought about in order to incorporate these particular families into becoming full-fledged corporations up under the government's rule. And that's not something I agree with, guys. Like, I'm totally against this government. I look at the government as our enemy because they're not holding up to their end of the bargain, which was multiple treaties that I do in fact have that have not been signed, by the way, stemming all the way back to the top of the 1700s. And I show, of course, my Patreons this, and I don't believe I got a chance to show the members of my YouTube channel that, but I will eventually. But I honestly need help with that because there's so many of them. I said to myself that I just wanted to create a website and throw all of them out there because I'm sure people are not going to get, have that type of money to pay for that to get all of those. But I had to put in multiple requests in order to retrieve all of them. I don't even know if I have all of them, but I know I have a ton of them. I'm talking about a lot of them, and none of them were signed. And I'm talking about original copies. And that cost me a pretty penny, And I said copies because I know they're not going to give me the original. They're still going to hold on to that by way that was the National Archives. Library of Congress is holding some of this stuff down too. You can track that depending on your individual family. I tell people this all the time. I do have a book that's going to give you basic instructions, step-by-step instructions, and how to start your journey. I highly recommend that you get that done. That book is on Amazon right now as the bestseller, and it has 5 stars right now. It's called Tracing. I'm not making this up. Like, people could Amazon it right now. Tracing Your Family's Genealogical Background by Records by Dane Calloway. I have a second version or second edition of that book getting ready to release in the middle of this spring. Actually, I got a couple of books coming, but that's one of them. I tried to put that out last year, but that's when all that, I don't even want to say that terminology, but that's when the damn gimmick, you can read in between the lines, that's when the damn gimmick came about. Even the year before that, that's what actually paused me with traveling because I was traveling, through many different states. You know, I know certain people just saw me go to Virginia. They didn't watch my entire channel. If you look at my channel, I'm going to multiple different states, not just Virginia. But I stayed in Virginia heavy because a lot of this information I retrieved right now is being held by Virginia's historic Department of Historic Resources. Keep in mind, prior to these states being labeled as states, a lot of this landmass, especially on the East Coast, was originally called Virginia. I mean, I'm talking about that's before you heard places like Kentucky, Georgia, North Carolina. Well, even before North Carolina, South Carolina, because before they were separated, they were called the Carolinas. But even before that, like around the Boondocks area, they were, all the way up to New York. It was called, and I showed people this on the map. This was an old live stream of mine. I'll bring this back up. But I showed people the original map that indicates that all of that landmass was called Virginia by way of the, what is the name of that? That was called the Congregation for Propagating the Gospel in Foreign Parts. The Congregation for Propagating the Gospel in Foreign Parts. Okay? These were the so-called Englishmen that were sent over here to teach us their gospel in order to manipulate our mindsets into allowing them here and allowing us to have open minds and open hearts. Now, a lot of our people, our very own indigenous people, a lot of our Niji people didn't agree with that. So what they did was they stopped sending over adults. They started sending children by the hundreds. And this is by way of their own records. Virginia Statutes at Large, that is called the Virginia Company of London. The Virginia Company of London. That's why a lot of that landmass was called Virginia, from top to bottom on the East Coast. Now, when we speak of people on this side on the East Coast, we're going to call them the East Woodland Indians. Now, a lot of people may be unfamiliar with that, but if you get to some terminologies that you may have heard of, like some Algonquin speaking people, that's when you're going to notice how many sections of that dialect was broken off into smaller sections. Like this is where you got some of the Cherokee. You know, a lot of the Cherokee was heavily influenced by the Algonquin speaking people. In fact, many of the tribes were, but of course, I'm not here to speak about other people's tribes. I can only speak for mine, which will now be considered the Eastern Band Cherokee. So I'm going to be getting more of my family members involved here this year and next year, especially now that a lot of these restrictions are being lifted. Going to these places, putting a lot of things that you haven't seen or probably went past, or I'm just going to put it on camera, and along with an explanation of what happened with the proof, the evidence as well. Because once again, I say this multiple times, a lot of the stuff was documented. It's just that our people didn't have any interest in learning what this stuff was about because, of course, they took our attention away from America and put it right on Africa. To be exact, they put it on Egypt too. And that's all the way in North Africa. So we weren't even taught things on West Africa. But I do have a book talking about that. I'm not going to give the name or nothing like that. She's going to get on me. I think that's coming. That's the first book where I'm talking about what happened with the transatlantic slave trade. I guess I could go ahead and say that part at least. Yeah. And the real message behind it, the real documents behind it, what you probably can't Google. I'm going to enlist all of what I have inside of my book, just like how I did Nat Turner and Harriet Tubman. You know, I mean, it's people gonna have to take it or leave it, but I'm going to tell you what's going on. Like basically off of my research and what I found and what I discovered, I don't have a master teacher. I'm not led by unless you want to consider my grandfather my master teacher, I'm not led by any congregation, any organization or, institution or anything like that of that nature. I'm not a Mason. I'm not a Freemason. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Muslim. I'm Dane Calloway. I'm Dane Calloway, and I'm just here to make you think. I don't want anybody to take what I'm stating as if I'm trying to go against my people. No, I'm going against the information that was presented to our people to make it seem as if it was our history when it wasn't. It has no proof to stand on. And this is the reason why you don't see people with larger platforms come at me. They may say things here and there and call me outside of my name, but they won't take my information and try to debunk it because they know that I'm presenting records. each time I'm presenting, and this is the reason why I could be considered a threat or I could be considered dangerous with a lot of these previous movements that accumulated around the 1960s, like the Black Power movements. But KP, like what you were telling me over the phone, I don't know if you want to share that now because I know it's a little late and I know she probably not gonna, but I can't wait to do that because that's key. Amazing. Because that opens up the door. I mean, it's up to you. Can I go into that just a little?
Yeah, you can go into it. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, because somebody very close to KP, this is what I'm going to say. Somebody very close to KP discovered that they own land. And this is the key because I want you guys to understand how important that is. It's not because of you. I mean, well, not only, let me say it like this. It's not only because of the fact that you can take the land and build whatever you want on it in order to take care of your family right now and future generations to come, but it also means that you do have connection to indigenous roots that way, because how the Homestead Acts were constructed, they indicate who the lands were taken from, all the way back to the doctrine of discovery, guys. And that's another thing I had to pay for because it was in some form of it's not Latin, it was like an ancient Spanish. I had to get that translated in order to understand what the doctrine of discovery was about, but they literally wrote this down, guys, and they said straight up that they're going to come over here and attempt to take our land. But the first thing that they had to implement was religion in order for everything to settle down as far as the rebellions, the revolts. You know, we were fighting. We put up fights. This is the reason why I tell people that this government was not kicking tail until the 1850s. Yeah, they so-called got their independence in 1776. Yeah, but that don't mean that they was going crazy, like their militia was large. And no. It took them a while to get to where they are right now. Okay? And I mean that. Like, in fact, you didn't see the voting system happen until the 1850s as well. There's a segment getting ready to come out when I tell you, I start teaching you guys about the original presidents. Like, for example, let me just give you a little hint of where I'm going. Like, what do we have to lay claim to that tells us or confirms that George Washington was the very first president? Because we're just basing it off of the stories. So what else? Like, what else do we have to what else do we have that confirms that George Washington was the very first president? Can anybody recall who voted for him to become president? What were their names? When did that happen? What law was passed in order for the Congressional Congress, that's what they were called earlier, in order for them to indicate, all right, well, we need a president here now to take care of the Union. Originally, you know, the Union, the Confederates, because at first they had confederations, which is a conglomerate unit of particular tribes and their own governments. This is the reason why they were, trying to take your mind off from the Confederate flag, trying to state that it was all about prejudice. And that was way before the Huguenots even got in here. We already had those flags. There's a lot of stuff that they're using right now, guys, that was originally ours, and they just modified it and created a story to make it seem as if it was ours all along. How did they do that? Well, they didn't teach the parents, of course, because they couldn't manipulate them. They had to teach the students. And this is why I keep telling people a lot of these stories are stemming from our own school. Well, I wouldn't lay claim to them because we have no ownership of them. I mean, even all the way down to the HBCUs, you giving up all your money to this historically black college. But what was it prior to being historically black? Because it's still, to this very day, being owned by a foreign white man right now. So are you handing your money to the students of that HBCU or to the white man? But see, I jump a lot. Let me get some more water. I did jump right there, but I want people to understand that we are owed way more than just reparations here. We're owed way more than restitutions here because we literally built America from the ground up. And I mean prior to these foreigners coming over here, and that's including the ones that they want to call Native American. And that's even by their own paperwork. And this is what I tell people. That's how I grab this information. And I'm repeating it back to you guys to let you know that they have been telling the truth. You just overlooked it. And what's crazy is if you really want to know what happened to your own individual family, all you got to do is contact somebody that's an elder in your family. They're going to tell you. Come to them with those type of questions. That's actually how you begin genealogical research on your family members anyway. You go have a conversation with the elders of your family members. Start writing it down. Take a camera if need be. They're walking libraries. My grandfather hated that I said that, but they're walking libraries, guys. They know what happened, okay? And just think about that. With my grandfather being born in 1936, that means that what? His mother was born early 1900, 1901, 2, I can't remember, I don't have that in front of me. But guess what? Her mother, look at how close that is, guys. Let's just say each generation was 30 years back. Let's just say, for example, because there's no set number, but let's just say it's 30 years back. So we go back 30 years, each generation. It's not that hard to pinpoint if your ancestors were slaves or not. Why? Because that story would get passed down. That story would have been passed down. Not only that, you would find by records indentures, which is a contract. You would find indentures to see if somebody filled out that application for employment, because that's mainly what it was. And if they were working, it would indicate that. It will also, and I show people examples of what indentures look like, but no, they much rather listen to somebody blind and know we came from Africa, and that's not the case. That's not the case for everybody. In fact, as far as the Africans is concerned, before they came here, Jamaicans were here. Everybody from Central and South America were here, back and forth. Those are our brothers and sisters. Right there, there you go. The Africans would be considered our distant cousins if you want to make the correlation as far as a family line is concerned. But technically, I also told people that there's no such thing as an African, because the people that use that terminology were of pale face, of the Afri tribe. Those were all pale faces. And we clinged on to that idea, and some of those people that moved from that landmass in North Africa to South Africa still call themselves Africans right now, but it's pronounced Afrikaners with a K. In their native language, and which they're Dutch people, by the way, but their native tongue is Afrikaans. Of Dutch descent, by the way. I showed people this. This is the reason why Umar Johnson don't want no smoke with me, because I'm telling them, look, here go the records. These white folks took you off your land mentally, and by the paper, the pen and paper. It was a paper genocide that happened to us. Yes, wars happen, but the real genocide was by the pen and paper. And I keep telling people, listen, the only way you're really gonna find out is if you go back and start talking to your elders of your family members, jot that stuff down, see what happened. Some of them could have been working on the railroad. Some of them could have been owning the railroad. Some of them, or train station, whatever. They could have been conductors. They could have been, it's so many different things they could just look and see. You might mess around and notice that they were involved in these wars, and they opened up a Freedmen's Bank account. Cha-ching! That's money owed to y'all, because guess what? Abraham Lincoln said that money is not only owed to the people that opened up the bank account, it's owed to the descendants. That was in his own writing. And I mean, you want some reparations, then you go check. Go check and see if they were involved in these wars and opened up a Freeman bank account. That's in my book as well, by the way. I told you about that. And I also tell people in my book, even if you were adopted, it's no excuse. Here's what you do. I'm telling you, the reason why I wrote that book is because when I went viral on Facebook, 7 million views, my very first video, I was just on there, on camera, showing people my records. At my grandfather's house, matter of fact. The second video, I was on my grandfather's front porch. Another 7 million. Then, right after that, YouTube took me right off. Facebook. I'm talking about, I couldn't post. They were going ham. Slapped me with 30 days, then 90 days right after that. No, they didn't give me no reason. And then right after the 90 days, they permanently locked me out. But by that time, I had already created a YouTube channel. But people, it's a reason why they don't want you to know this. It's a reason why our own people that look like you and I is coming at me. And it never fails. It's always like late 30s, early 40s and up that turn their nose up because they lazy. That's what it is. People just got to put their mind on it. Look, you've been lied to. This whole history crap that they gave us, that they fed us in school, is a lie. That's why I said at the beginning of that video that I asked KP to play, I said they would say that history was written by the victors, but I would have to disagree with them, only because a loser will have the audacity to write a story to make it seem as if they won when they didn't. Only a loser would do that, not a winner. Keep in mind, because if they were the real winners, then why are they not bragging in these museums on who these captains of these so-called slave ships are? No, but they give you the general this and the lieutenant general that when it comes to the Civil War, right? But they don't give you a captain of a slave ship in a museum? And this is the story that they beat in your head? And we letting them get away with it? And I made them change them numbers. How you gonna go from 12.5 million to 392,000, then all the way down to 92,000 so-called slaves coming from Africa? Where are those records? But you know what they turn around and tell you? No, the records stop in 1800s. You can't go further back than that. Well, how come you can tell me about something that happened in 1619? Liar. The records don't stop in the 1800s. They lying. If that was the case, then why the census started in 1790? That very next year, they created the patent office so they could stop patenting your ideas. Listen to how they set that up. They couldn't do it. They couldn't make it without us. From the get-go. This government, I'm telling you, we got to turn this stuff upside down, y'all. And there's only one way for us to do it. It's for us to be cognizant of each, everybody's story is going to be different. Everybody's story is going to be different. But like I said before, the similarity is going to be the fact that, yeah, we're indigenous to this land. Clearly, inside of my book, I give you the microfilms where you can check out those vessel lists to see if your ancestors' names are on there. If they not, guess what? Guess what? And I told you, when you look at those records, you're going to notice that ain't going to be nothing but pale faces coming off of those boats. And that's why I told y'all the real Africans was them. They used that terminology. We adapted that term to consider that whole landmass Africa. I put up a guy on my channel from Ghana, and he told you what they considered the entire landmass. In his native tongue, he said it's called a bliblum. Does that sound like Africa? No. He said and in the same video, he said if you go ask my mother what Africa is, she not gonna know what you talking about. Because she don't speak English. It's only Africans that speak English that's gonna be able to, some of them gonna tell you the truth, and some of them is just gonna fall in line with this government. They're gonna think nothing of you, kick you up under the rug. But it's a lot of them that I know for a fact that don't got no cut cards that's gonna tell it just like how it is. They not us. We not them. That don't mean we don't gotta get along, or we do gotta get along. We cool. We fine. But they over here for a reason. Y'all? We not over in Africa for a reason too. Listen to that. They over here for a reason, but we not over there in Africa for a reason too. They over here to build up their resources, to give it back to those family members that they do have in parts of Africa that we call Africa. That's what they doing. And they fighting tooth and nail for that. And they not really trying to go back to Africa. They fighting to get their nationality card. Right now, they want that dual citizenship so they can go back and forth, just like a lot of these politicians got dual citizenship. A lot of them are foreign descent. This government is a foreign government ran by foreigners. Straight up. We could say, okay, well, this generation that we see right now was native to America. That's why I told y'all to stop calling yourselves native. Anybody that was born here will be considered a native, even if their father was from Germany and their mother from Hungary. That person will be considered a Native American. But when you're indigenous to this land, that means that your blood is in the soil, in the dirt of whatever landmass. Okay? In our case, it's this one. It's Turtle Island. It's the motherland. You can find out if your bloodline will go back to any parts of Africa or any other part of the world, like Europe, for example. It's not hard. Some people do have European blood, but it's not all. Some people do have some kinfolk in Africa, but it's not all. I said the majority of us were always here. It's time for people to wake up. It ain't time for the, well, Dane, I don't believe you. It sound good, but if you don't believe me, good. Write it down and go ask your own family members. You waiting for me to give you the answer when your elders got the answer. But how we gonna trust our grandparents over scientists? You know what scientists are? Do you know what scientists are? Right now, look, I'm gonna tell you right now, do you trust that vaccine enough? Well, you gonna trust a scientist to tell you, look, that's gonna prevent? Well, I remember at first they told her, I'm not gonna say nothing to get your channel. Okay. No, I'm just gonna say they told us originally that was set there to prevent that from coming. Then a few months later, it came with those people that took it, right? Popped up. But you still trust the scientists. Some of them scientists will consider those bones happening years and thousands of years ago when they were just born in, they were just born in the 70s? They were just born in the 60s? Where's the chart? Or where's the proof that you can determine? Keep in mind they're using estimates, a guess, assumptions. That's complete speculation. That has not been verified. But what we do? We give people credit based off of their title right now. Oh, well, that person's a doctor. He's more creditable. That just shows all of those titles. It just shows how indoctrinated that person is in the industrial society right now. It's always been that way, and it's still that way. This is the reason why when you come out of college and you graduate with a bachelor's degree, for example, why is it so hard for you to get a job? You think that's about to happen overnight? Yeah, I got my bachelor's. I'm gonna get the 60 to 70,000 a year. It don't work like that. Meanwhile, you in debt. On top of that, you in debt twice. You in debt as soon as you sign over that birth certificate. And then you in debt because you owe the college or university that you went to if you didn't have a free ride, books included. You gotta worry about that. That doctorate degree ain't nothing to brag about. That bachelor's degree ain't nothing to brag about. A piece of paper don't indicate that you're intelligent. That doesn't make you more creditable. To what degree have you been indoctrinated? That's what that's about. To what degree? That's when they know they could use you in certain areas. I mean, a lot of these corporations will hire you in certain managerial roles, depending on your degree. You got associate's degree, you're associate manager. Bachelor's degree, general manager. Am I lying? That's how I go. Industrialism. That's been happening since the late 1700s. And meanwhile, back in the late 1700s, it was the women and the children working in those factories. Women and children working in the factories. Where were the men fighting each other? Wasn't that many of them? Factories were exploding. Those people were dying. And I mean that. Y'all can look this up. They were dying. Women and children. White folks too, by the way. When Francis Galton came up with eugenics, that was his way to try to figure out what happened to their own race. Where did they come from? That was basically a guess again. They were theorizing. Again, they didn't know what was going on. He was influenced by Charles Darwin and his grandfather, natural selection. They used all of that pseudoscience, mushed it over to anthropology, smashed it all together with biology. All science now. All science. That's why I said the scientists ain't got all you're doing is repeating another stranger again. And then you're going to give that person more credit because they got a title again. That's just, we better listen to Massa because that's the Massa. That's the same thing. No, don't do that now because Massa said you doing it again. Modern version. Break the chains off of your brain. Break them. The reason why I'm here to make you think is because you're not thinking for yourself again. That's why I don't give you speculation. I give you something to critically think about. Hands down. This is the reason why I'm different from a lot of people that might even regurgitate the same information that I put out. You may see them. You may hold them up high. The difference between me and them is that they still reading books. I'm beyond that. I'm beyond the books. I'm out in the field. I'm touching the people. I'm talking to them. I'm getting stuff done. And I'm still gonna put this information out in books and videos and I'm gonna put it on a larger scale too. That's the next route. We're gonna touch them. We're gonna force the changes. But I can't sit up here and change everybody's life. That's up to you. All we need is 13%. Everybody else gonna follow suit. They ain't gonna have no choice after that point. We need to take back over what's ours. I'm just here to make you think.